Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where Hollywood continues to struggle this year. Remember, it was survive until 2025, and survival seems to be a very good word still for 2025. Things have not gotten better. In some ways, they feel like they've gotten worse. What do you think? We're going to discuss. So it's not great, but the face of that not great seems to be Disney right now, because to be fair, they're the only one really doing anything. But because of what's happening, I think a theme that's emerging around the studio is the question of quantity versus quality. Is it because Disney is a victim of the current political climate, which has been turned up to a 12 with the new administration? Again, as I said, the Trump news cycle is very hard for Hollywood to compete with. I believe during the latest press conference, Trump even said this is going to make for amazing television. And he does, he did come from the entertainment space. That's one of the ways that he significantly raised his profile. But also maybe it's the quality of the Disney product. I think it's probably a mix of the two. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that. But yes, Disney is certainly the busiest studio right now. But even with that flurry of activity, most of their stuff, if not all of it, is just simply not connecting. Here's some evidence. So the negative narrative around Captain America: Brave New World has taken root. No matter how you feel about the movie, the pop culture consciousness has decided it's not good. For instance, last night on Saturday Night Live's Weekend Update, they made a joke. It was about the theater cave-in during the showing of Captain America: Brave New World, but the punchline was at the expense of the movie, and the audience laughed pretty hard. Nielsen Ratings have finally caught up with the debut of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which we now see is the latest Disney Plus show unable to chart, even on the originals chart, and it had a 2-episode debut. Now, it was short episodes because it's animation, and to be fair, a lot of other streaming services have had trouble getting their animated shows to chart as well. But this is a consistent problem for Disney with animation and live action. And Snow White looms on the horizon. The movie comes out this month now. It's the next major Hollywood release, and advanced ticket sales have still not gone up. So one of you had asked me, where's the final Snow White trailer? Where are the ticket sales? I guess they're worried about people screenshotting empty theaters. I think some people will buy tickets. Are you planning to buy tickets to see Snow White in theaters? That's going to be a big theme of today. When and why do you see movies in theaters? Because people are talking about it. Wait till you hear what AMC had to say. Now, of course, Daredevil starts this week. The savior of Hell's Kitchen and the Mouse House? Disney needs it to be a hit, despite its trailers and press tour not generating a lot of headlines, which I find a real head-scratcher. Neat. What the heck happened? Everybody was so excited about it during all the Comic-Con and convention appearances. People were like, show us the trailer, for God's sake. Did they do that? Did they hold back too long with showing the trailer to the public? Because suddenly no one seems to care about the show. It's very weird. Disney is saying we're going to go all in on the Marvel Netflix shows. If you guys watch this one, we'll give you more, we promise. And in fact, for the first time ever, for a live-action Marvel or Star Wars Disney Plus show, Disney at the last minute gave out all 9 episodes to press. Very last minute. Press is working their way through them. But that would mean there are no major surprises in store. Like if they would the good thing about Disney always just giving out a couple of episodes was it meant, we can't let anyone find out what happens towards the end of the season. But, some press worked through it all the way very quickly. And, there seems to be no big surprises, and it was sent out to a lot of people. So, I think that's an interesting move. We'll see what happens with Daredevil. Daredevil needs to chart on Nielsen. It really needs to. Because this is, everybody's been saying, remember how great the Netflix Marvel shows were? Why can't you do stuff like that? They redid Daredevil. This is take 2. They scrapped the whole first time they filmed season 1. So it's gotta chart. It has to. And it will debut with 2 episodes this Tuesday night, which is a lot of minutes, because these episodes are a little longer than your standard half-hour animated show. And that's, of course, how Nielsen measures viewership. Are you planning to watch this Tuesday? I'll be doing weekly breakdowns, so please join me if you're watching the show. And you know what? Even if you're not, some of you say you just watch breakdowns instead of actually watching the shows. Especially because, of churn, are you subscribed to Disney Plus right now? All right, so it was an awfully slow weekend at the box office. It was the second slowest weekend of the year so far after Super Bowl weekend. That's the lowest. But you know what? Both weekends had major Sunday night television events. Tonight, the Oscars. Maybe a major television event? I see a lot of boo Hollywood out there, but come on. This is iconic. This is the awards show. If you're going to watch any awards show, this is the one to watch. They're really trying to. There's supposed to be a lot of fun, cool things tonight. And some of us are very excited. I'm excited, and I'm having a little party. I hope you'll join me. I'll be live tweeting the Oscars during the telecast. Remember, this year the Oscars start at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, an hour earlier than usual. Not the red carpet, the actual show. Starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's scheduled to run for 3.5 hours. They took a little extra time because they're starting earlier. And of course, the show always runs a little over. So it's technically supposed to end at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But after the live show, I'll be doing a live Oscar stream right here on YouTube to talk about who won, who lost in the show itself. And that's going to start at around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I might hop on a little earlier if things are really jumping. But I'm setting it for 11 in case I have to put a lot of stuff together to get ready to go live. But so that's where it's going to be. If you can't join me live after the Oscars, the live stream, of course, will remain up for you to check out when you are available. It's Anora versus Conclave, Demi Moore versus Mikey Madison, Timothy Chalamet versus Adrian Brody. There could be some real surprises. There are some actual matchups. Usually we know who's going to win by now. But again, we're not are you sure about any of these? I'm not sure. And the show is also supposed to start, speaking of when it starts, you're not going to want to miss that because they're doing a big Wicked musical performance. Oh boy. I mean, you can watch White Lotus episode 3 after the telecast. And you know what? Lisa's in the Oscars as well. She has an amazing PR team. She's on fire right now. It's incredible. What are your plans for tonight? All right, so as for the weekend box office, it was pretty brutal. It was pretty bad. Sure, Captain America Brave New World had a better third weekend hold than Quantumania, and The Monkey had a better hold than expected for a horror film that wasn't too well received when it opened last weekend. But I'm sorry to say, when you take a look at how they're stacked up against their predecessors at this point in release, they're both still lagging behind. Weirdly, speaking of predecessors, the 2025 box office is slightly ahead of 2024 for the same time period, 11% ahead. So at this point, each year it had one major release. It was Dune 2 last year, and this year we have had Captain America Brave New World. So we're 11% ahead. So why does it feel so blah? Well, I think it's because Dune 2 massively overperformed. It doubled the opening of Dune 1. Although, to be fair, Dune 1, of course, was one of those pandemic movies that opened day and date on Max. While Captain America Brave New World, though, is felt to have underperformed, right? So 2024 felt like things were happening. Things were happening, man. We were on our way up. And now we feel like, things aren't bad and like things are stalled. We're still like kind of waiting for 2025 to truly begin. So how about March? March is spring break, historically a great month for movies. And we're getting Warner Brothers Mickey 17 this Friday, and also from the studio Alto Nights later this month. Paramount has Novocaine, although that's a lot of Jack Quaid back to back. I just saw him in Companion. That's a lot of Jack Quaid. But we'll see. And then Disney's Snow White, of course, is supposed to be the big movie of the month. I mean, not only did Beauty and the Beast make a lot of money here, but so did Captain Marvel back in the day. So it should be a big month for female-led movies. So we'll see. And ironically, speaking of Disney, Jonathan Majors' magazine Dreams will finally hit theaters, still from Disney's Searchlight division, the same weekend. I think there's a lot of hope that Warner Brothers' Minecraft will be the new Super Mario Brothers movie, or at least the new Jumanji. And that comes out the first weekend of April, which, by the way, was Super Mario's release date. What movie do you think will be Hollywood's next hit, or first true hit, of 2025? You got to really think about it. They're not doing much to advertise these things. All right, so I just gave you a big list, though. All right, so as for the overall top 10, Universal's Focus Features barely released Last Breath. What was that? Well, it didn't totally embarrass itself thanks to some star power, tiny star power, but still star power nonetheless, and pretty good audience scores. In fact, that Rotten Tomatoes audience score is freaking amazing. Makes me do a double take for the film. Focus spent barely any money to advertise it, so perhaps it was worth releasing it in theaters, especially since, again, it didn't really cost them too much, because it makes it an official theatrical release. And that might help down the line on digital and streaming. Universal being the fastest gun in the West, Hollywood West, to get their movies on digital. Do you think that you might watch Last Breath considering these audience scores and that it opened okay for the weekend? Although, you know what? AMC is pretty upset about the theatrical window, the ever-shrinking theatrical window. And AMC, the reason they're upset about it is they continue to lose money, quite a bit of money. They lost less money in 2024 than they did in 2023, but they're still losing money. And CEO Adam Aron is campaigning. Well, he has been campaigning behind the scenes, but now he's talking to the press about going back to a longer theatrical window. Oh, hell no! But let me tell you what's happening. Some of you might be like, don't you frickin' dare. So right now, the norm now is about 45 days. That's the average, down from 74 days pre-pandemic, with Universal, as I said, the fastest. 17 days for the clunkers, 30 days for the hits. And Disney is currently holding out the longest with a theatrical window of 60 days. And it's working out pretty well for Disney. Aaron says he wants everyone to agree to a 45-day theatrical window at minimum, but he would prefer if everybody would wait as long as Disney with 60 days. And you know what? He says maybe then we might be able to get back eventually to 74. I personally think the genie's out of the bottle. Ain't no way you're closing this box, Pandora. And I think that audiences just simply will not go back for tons of reasons. I think if you extend the theatrical window, audiences will just wait. It's really more of how long do you want to make people wait to watch your movie? And will they still care at that point if it's not doing well in theaters? I wonder what your stance is. But I say again and again and again, and I will keep beating this drum until the theaters, the studios should pressure them until the theaters listen. And it's really all about just giving audiences a better experience for their, bang for their buck. I think AMC A-List is a great program, but still it's very expensive to go to the movies. They are changing AMC A-List going into the summer movie season. They're lowering the age. I believe it's now 13 and up, so more families can use it, and you'll be able to reserve for 4 movies at a time instead of just 3. Because, if you make reservations in advance, even though you're supposed to technically be able to see 3 movies a week, if you're sitting there holding 3 reservations, you're stuck. So we'll see if those make a difference. But also a better movie, and also it's so expensive. The food at the theater is so expensive and it's so boring, and they need more choices. But also a better actual experience, cleaner, nicer, more premium screens, which we keep discussing, and also no interruptions. We're talking cell phones. We're talking talking. I hear from so many of you that you try to go back to theaters and then you have such an awful experience with your fellow audience members, you swear never again, or at least for a little while until that horrible experience fades away for you. So what do you think? If you were negotiating a theatrical window, or renegotiating, I guess, a theatrical window with AMC, what would you be willing to do to help them out a little bit? Because they are continuing to lose money. What would you say to Adam Aron about your needs, about your demands? All right, also, Hollywood needs to release more films. And look at this crazy top 10. Mufasa's been in theaters for 11 weeks and is even now on digital, but there ain't nothing else to see. People are still seeing Hard Eyes. That's a Valentine's Day movie. Talk about feeling like you're sifting through a junk drawer. Will Mickey 17 be a welcome new arrival, or do you feel you're already off movies, like you've checked out? What's the next movie that you plan to see in theaters? I'm very curious to hear your answer on that. And do you even know which it will be? Because again, I think that they aren't doing a great job of advertising some of these things. All right, so over on streaming, let's start with Nielsen per usual. Speaking of what you are watching, over in the streaming space, on the overall chart, it looks like season 2s of The Night Agent and The Recruit can share the space, as they're both dominating the overall chart. I asked you, in previous weeks, I've said these shows look the same to me. And some of you who watch them said, oh no, they are not the same. One is a drama and one's a comedy, which I find hilarious and fitting because it's both serious and funny how Netflix is dominating and continues to dominate the streaming charts. Also, the new Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell comedy, while it didn't explode onto the streaming scene, it still managed to do pretty good numbers for Prime Video. I watched it. I went in with very low expectations, and I actually thought it was pretty good. I thought that was pretty solid. But ooh, look at this originals chart. Do you see it? Do you see what I'm talking about? I'm not only talking about Severance. So Severance Season 2 continues to impress. Now up to number 4. It was number 5 last week on the originals chart. Maybe it'll get onto the overall chart. But then also, I was talking about how good Paradise and Landman were a few weeks ago. I was like, these are the hit shows right now. And someone in the comments was like, Paradise isn't even charting. What are you talking about? And I was like, Paradise hasn't hit Nielsen yet. Well, here it is. And it's a monster. And it just itself was renewed for season 2. It dropped its first episode during this chart on January 26th. But then, similar to Prime Video, remember, Prime Video does weekly releases, but it always starts seasons with 3 episodes. They start like a new show on Prime Video as a binge to get you hooked, like they did with Fallout, and then they switch to weekly. But they always start with 3, and Hulu did as well, because 2 days later, on January 28th, they dropped another 2 episodes. That gave them 3 episodes for their debut week. And then Hulu's show Paradise also went weekly. Its season finale is this Tuesday. So this is a very big deal for Sterling K. Brown, who got his first big career surge off of This Is Us. And by the way, same creative team behind Paradise. He reteamed with them for this. And now looks like he's going to get another big career surge as well. I love Sterling K. Brown so much. I've run into him several times. I saw him once at a Broadway show, and I got a picture with him. And then right before Paradise premiered, I was walking in New York City, and it was late at night, and I saw him going into a hotel, checking in, I guess, for the press tour for Paradise, and I couldn't help myself. I was like, I love your work, Sterling K. Brown. He said, thank you. It was very nice. So I'm very happy for him. This is great. And it's also a big deal for Mr. James Marsden, who has been working hard for years in the streaming space. He was a big deal for a while in movies, but then he kind of faded away, but he didn't give up. And he's been on some great streaming shows like that one. I forget, it's been a while, but it was with Christina Applegate and I forgot the other actress's name, but there was a good show and he was on there and he was excellent. But he's just kept working, and it looks like that consistent, game has just yielded a big dividend for him. I would think that both of them are going to start getting better acting offers. They've consistently worked, but I think they're going to start to go to the top of casting directors and producers' wish lists. Meanwhile, have you watched Paradise? Get on that. It's a great show. So meanwhile, Squid Game, Landman, and American Primeval are also still in the top 10 on the originals chart here. I've watched all this except for American Primeval. Did anyone else watch American Primeval? I just haven't been able to get into American Primeval, but I highly recommend everything else here. These posters that you're seeing. And then, I don't watch these reality shows, but Beast Games and The Traders also continues to do quite well. Well, keep an eye out to see if your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is able to eventually swing onto this chart, having missed it with its debut. But it's going to add more episodes, so we'll see. Not too much happening on the movies chart, with You're Cordially Invited taking the top spot from Back in Action, but Back in Action is right behind it still at number 2. The rest of the movies on this chart are theatrical releases that have finally made their way to streaming services or have popped up on a different streaming service, so they're new to those subscribers. All right, now let's take a look at Netflix's charts. La Dolce Villa, what a funny play on words, is still number 1, but it's kind of boring on this chart. But there's a little bit more activity happening on the shows chart. So, true crime series American Murder eclipsed the new Robert De Niro political thriller 0 Day. I tried to watch that. I got screeners for that a little bit in advance. Couldn't get through them. And now that, since I was just talking about Paradise when I was doing my notes for this video, it occurred to me that 0 Day is a poorly done version of Paradise. They're very similar shows. However, what's interesting to me is that 0 Day leans heavily on star power, whereas Paradise, very well acted, but certainly not the star power that 0 Day has. But Paradise is a much better written show, and Hulu clearly spent a lot of money on it. The sets, whereas 0 Day is clearly a very cheap show. So it just goes to show how Hollywood has shifted. Actors can still be draws, but the days of stars being able to do all the heavy lifting for you seem to definitely, just becoming more and more over. With weekly releases, Love is Blind is still doing well for Netflix, but WWE Raw barely on the chart this week. My goodness. Are you watching WWE Raw on Netflix? Is it not clicking? And if so, what do you think is the issue? Then with digital on Apple's charts, as you can see, everyone's getting ready for tonight's Oscars. They've been getting ready for it with A Complete Unknown, which just hit digital, leading the pack. And of course, hot off of Timmy C's SAG win. Great movie. Love A Complete Unknown. Which Oscar contenders have you checked out at the last minute getting ready for tonight's ceremony? Then there's a couple of family films towards the bottom, and touchingly, Gene Hackman's The French Connection is in the top 10 in the wake of his tragic and mysterious death. That's arguably his most famous film. And talk about Love Hurts. Oh my goodness, the Ke-Huy Quan Valentine's Day actioner, which was a total dud at the box office, which is why it's been rushed to digital in just 17 days. It's nowhere near the top 10. It just hit, and it's at number 22? Wow. Talk about horrible career advice from Mr. Steven Spielberg. Can Oscar winner Ke-Huy Quan recover? Ironically, his co-star here is Ariana DeBose, who's also imploded post-Oscar. I think he'll always be able to get a supporting role, just like Ariana DeBose can. And he just had a fun cameo, by the way, in The White Lotus. But I think it will be hard for him to get another lead role. What do you think? What would if you were Ke-Huy Kwan's agent, what would you say to him? What would be your game plan? All right, as far as this coming weekend, as I said, Warner Brothers' Mickey 17 enters the fray. The Rotten Tomatoes score has gone up, but the movie is still just expected to open with around 20 million. That's the high end of the prediction. Although, that's right around where Nosferatu opened, and that movie ended up being a huge hit. So you never know. You never know. I'm excited for Mickey 17. Although, Bong Joon-ho, who of course, Parasite is perhaps his most well-known film, won the Oscar. But, he's a very niche filmmaker. But so let's see. I'm excited to see the movie. No major digital releases this week, but we do have some streaming movies coming out. On Friday, Netflix has Plankton the movie. Why is that on Netflix and not on Paramount Plus? These streaming services are weird. While Hulu has that new Hellboy movie, The Crooked Man, which apparently was briefly on digital, but I don't remember it. Do you? I think I maybe vaguely remember it, but now you can watch it at no extra cost on Hulu. Netflix also has a documentary on the Manson murders, also on Friday. Then with shows, again, tonight, it's the Oscars. Join me during the show on Twitter where I'll be live tweeting starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then join me right after, right here on YouTube Live at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to talk about the show. Or watch my live stream review and recap later when you can. I know some of you in overseas will be sleeping. Or are you staying up? Are you doing it? Stay up with me. All right, so Tuesday, Daredevil starts with those 2 episodes, which again, I'll be doing breakdowns for. I'm not quite sure what time those will go up, but I'll be doing breakdowns for Daredevil weekly, either super late on Tuesday or early Wednesday morning. And then on Wednesday, I was just asking about this show. The Amazing Race is back on CBS. I love that show. It's the only, that and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills are the only reality shows I still watch. They canceled $1 Million Listing LA. So horrible. All right, then on Thursday, which reality shows do you still watch? All right, then Survivor's big. Survivor's doing so well, but I just not into it anymore. Then on Thursday, Hulu premieres Deli Boys, which actually has some very strong star power behind it. And that's this week's movie math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And again, what do you think is going to get Hollywood out of its current slump? Do you think it is in a slump? How can it seem like we're in a slump when we are 11% ahead of last year? But AMC is still bleeding money. All right, and of course, I want to hear your thoughts on that theatrical window discussion. Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.